Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, researchers of the flat earth science, I would like to share with you on this upload some words by some very powerful and influential people. Nicholas Copernicus admitting that the movement of the earth can't be proven. Now he's mentioned or said the Pythagorean teaching of heliocentrism was founded upon hypothesis, and it is not necessary that the hypothesis should be true or even probable. The hypothesis of the movement of the earth is only one which is useful to explain certain phenomena, but it should not be considered an absolute truth. Nicholas Copernicus, 1543. Leonardo da Vinci on the science of using your own senses and experience. Now, if you find from your own experience that something is a fact and it contradicts what some authority has written down, then you must abandon the authority and base your reasoning on your own findings. George Bernard Shaw on the flat earth. Now, in the Middle Ages, people believed that the earth was flat, for which they had at least the evidence of their senses. We believe it to be round, not because many as 1% of us could give the physical reasons for such a quaint belief, but because modern science has convinced us that nothing that is obvious is true, and that everything that is magical, improbable, extraordinary, gigantic, microscopic, heartless, or outrageous is scientific. And a very interesting man, Nikola Tesla. Einstein's theory of relativity is a magnificent mathematical garb which fascinates, dazzles, and makes people blind to the underlying errors. The theory is like a beggar clothed in purple whom ignorant people take for a king. Its exponents are brilliant men, but they are metaphysicists rather than scientists. So once you've seen and thoroughly digested, guys, the massive amount of evidence that we live on a flat plate, the ball earth theory and all of its so-called evidence is easily seen as simply being completely ridiculous. For instance, these days, when we see something produced by NASA or Hollywood, you can see that it is fake instantly. And what we mean is that you don't have to think about it. I know without thinking that every bit of material that we receive from NASA is fake, guys, and it's a hoax. It's a delusion. Now, when we hear about people who think that they're pretty damn smart, mentioning things like galaxies and the Hubble telescope because they read a science article, I just have to shake my head, because we know that they've been 100% fooled now. They think that just because the article that they read says scientists claim, well, it must mean that it's true. And they get to feel that they are as smart because they read a scientific article. Now, wasn't it Mark Twain who said something like, it is much easier to fool people than to convince them that what you have, I think it was, it is much easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. Now, how true is that? Now, how can there be here's a very good, interesting point. How can there be outer space if there's no atmosphere? I don't even know science's official explanation of how this is possible. And on that point, I really don't want to hear about it either, because, as we know, I like to use my own common sense. Now, how is it possible that the Earth can have an atmosphere and then suddenly, at some point high in the air, it then turns into that perfect vacuum of space? How can there be atmosphere, then atmosphere, then atmosphere, and then suddenly no atmosphere? I mean, it's not possible. There would have to be some kind of solid membrane to separate the two. Now, isn't the vacuum of space supposed to suck any atmosphere into it? Now, we've all seen it depicted in the science fiction movies where the spaceship outer door is opened and then everything is then sucked out into the vacuum of space, or an aeroplane for that matter, when the door suddenly opens up, you are sucked out. There is also the question then of so-called gravity, which, as we well know, doesn't exist. At least there's this magical force that we've been conditioned to believe in that explains everything. And it doesn't. Imagine an astronaut going into space. How could there be gravity in which the astronaut is pulled down towards the Earth and then suddenly at some point he enters the weightlessness of space? In other words, where is the magical point on which one would feel that pull down towards the Earth and then switch to weightlessness, in which people and objects float around like magic? Wait, 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 and then weightlessness. Doesn't really make much sense, guys, does it? Wouldn't the Earth's so-called gravity continue to pull on you even when you've reached space? Doesn't the vacuum of space somehow cancel gravity, at least for fake astronauts? How can there be sudden weightlessness? Wouldn't it be a very gradual movement towards relative weightlessness as you move further and further away from the large mass of Earth? The real answer, guys, as we know, is that there is no outer space, at least in the way that we've been brought up to believe about it. And we've seen on many, many NASA, Hollywood, science fiction movies. Simple, but Star Wars, guys, just isn't possible. There is no other galaxies, as we've been told. The Earth is a realm within its own firmament, and that's it. Aliens or extraterrestrial life from other planets do not exist. Nobody walked on the moon because the moon is not a spherical object in space that we can walk on. Terra firma. It doesn't exist. Nothing that we think has been launched into space, including space shuttles and satellites, and there is no International Space Station orbiting the Earth in space. Everything regarding the ISS is fake, it's a delusion, it's a hoax. And the so-called planets are not millions of miles away in space, they are in our own firmament. Please, you can show me one non-NASA, non-Hollywood, non-theatrical proof evidence that outer space actually exists. It can't be. It's impossible because there is no evidence. The more you consider these things, guys, the conditioning will literally wear off. The more obvious it will become to you that all of this heliocentric globe Earth crap has literally been one enormous hoax. Remember, guys, don't be afraid to research into the flat Earth and think that you're going to be gyrated and abused and tormented like a lot of us do, because it's the ignorant that are afraid to change what they so strongly believe in and have believed in for many, many, many years. And we could be talking decades. The truth is the truth, guys, whether you believe it or not. And it's only been within the last 500 or so years, the heliocentric actual globe system has really been forced upon ourselves. Pythagorean theorem, or Pythagoras, may have thought about the globe system back then, but remember, he was then in the minority, because people's own experience and common sense would tell them that they live on a flat, motionless plane, not a globe system that spins and whirls and twirls at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, travelling from the Big Bang at 670 million miles an hour, which is the speed of light, and all the constellations of the stars are still the same, but we've been moving from this for thousands of years and they're still the same. Guys, it's you that holds the power. Thank you so much for watching this upload. Tap that subscribe. Feel the power of the Flat Earth movement. Join the club. I'm Nee B. Thanks for watching this upload. You guys, take care, and I wish you all the luck in the world. Peace to you all.